The real deals are on the air now. And now, live from the Swords of St. Michael Studios, it's The Real Deals. Kenneth and Farah Deal.
Greetings, folks. Hello. How are you? Train.
Hey. I know. Train.
Still playing around with some of the stuff a little bit in the settings.
I'm looking at hot dogs. We're supposed to be live.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony, you made it.
Okay, Deb, where are you?
I'm here. Good evening.
Okay.
People are having a time.
Welcome back to Deb, the veteran of the original most haunted house, whatever scenario. What an intro. We'll have to write some different intros or something on a cue card.
I'm thinking so.
This is part 2, folks. It's teens and the occult, more or less, and the two don't go together very well. And hopefully you don't have one who dabbles with that for many reasons. But this is a long series. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to go through it all the way to the end tonight.
That's why we're probably going to have a 3 and 4 part, as we discussed last time.
Yeah, we have to. So, I don't know. We're still pondering. And October was supposed to be a True Case Hauntings month. Like we'd be going over Amityville one day, the point by point, which was true, which was Jay Anson's embellishment, which couldn't have been true because it's not the phenomenon that's related to demons, or it's not typical for their activity and it's suspicious.
Exactly.
All those kind of big questions we're going to be bringing up. But we'll start with our St. Michael prayer. All right, you ready? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the malice and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, and we humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the divine powers of God, cast into hell Satan and all the other evil spirits, the realms of the world, seeking to ruin the souls. Amen.
Amen.
In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So as you see right here in the middle, and we'll get over to the other format so you guys can see it. Okay, one other note too. When you're looking at the screen right now and you see that gear in the bottom, it's settings right below your YouTube screen. Make sure it says HD next to it so you can get this nice and crisp and clear, and that includes the people who are watching the podcast later on.
Big hello to everybody out in our audience tonight. Hello, Dawn. Hello, Athena. It's Mr. Monkey Man. Hi, Santo Miguel. And Spoony Warrior. Hi, Carolyn. Good to see you. Monica, nice. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Rosalie made it. Oh my gosh, I'm in shock. I should take a photo moment. Rosalie is finally back. Yes, totally. Denise, a friend of ours, is in the hospital with a collapsed lung. So before you lay your head down tonight, if you could say a little prayer for her lungs and whoever else may be suffering with all kinds of maladies and stuff. Hi, Michael. Good to see you. And Bernard, our OFS brother. And, of course, those of you, a big shout-out to a friend of ours in Australia, as well as Poland. And we have so many people listening all over the world. Thank you. And we're very, very blessed.
Don't forget Canada, eh?
That's right. Oh, Canada. And your fabulous hockey teams. We love hockey.
Bob and Deb McKenzie or something.
So once again, we're jumping back in. Deb, are you here?
I'm with you, sister.
I got my coffee tonight. I got my coffee tonight.
Good for you.
And starting off, we
I got a big cup of coffee.
Actually ended on media influences.
Yeah, the last one we did was the New Age religious programs proclaiming all is light, the whole namaste thing.
Whenever this, before the Twilight movie, I was talking to somebody on some radio show. I called in, I was bored that day or whatever, I don't know. And it was so many years ago. And I said that the vampire was the new bad boy. Remember, it used to be guys like James Dean, leather jacket wearing, rebel without a cause. Now it's the undead. Now it's Cannibal Corpse, whatever, you know. So the bad boy has gotten even more bad. I mean, we did see those old 80s movies. You didn't really take them seriously, My Demon Lover, but they try to really get this across where you feel sorry for him. It's just a disease or something. I'd like to be a vampire, too. That's what Twilight puts in this. That would be like the bestest ever, to be a vampire, just like my boyfriend who wears red lipstick. Or is that just from blood that dries on his mouth? They always make them look like they got lipstick on. Always because they try to make them look like they're not pale corpses. To give a little life in the face, like when they did silent movies. Is that what was going on? So the Twilight series, there was like three of them. There's Anne Rice's
yes,
book,
remember
Interview
that
with the Vampire.
Interview with the Vampire, the whole series.
She temporarily changed back. I don't know, from Christian, and
I
then
think she actually became Christian, and then she's like, "Nah, I don't think I like this as way."
And so did Prince, if I remember right. Remember that?
Oh, I know. I don't know what happened with Prince. I'm not too
I
familiar.
don't know what's going on with that. But what do you expect when people write about vampires?
Yes.
It's kind of a strange obsession. And, in the old days, Bela Lugosi he hypnotized you with his eyes, and he's kind of an ugly guy, so he would have to hypnotize the women to walk over to him and let them bite their neck. So.
Yes, Captain Sparkles and Mr. Man Bun.
Oh my God! Some of the chat room names.
Oh my gosh! Did you ever read those stupid books, Deb?
I have to say no.
Did Prince write those?
No.
Or Elton John?
Did you go see the movie? I think, who was it that starred in the movie? That popular guy that used to jump over Oprah's chair.
Jim Carrey?
The Scientologist.
Oh,
Tom
Tom
Cruise.
Cruise.
Wasn't he in that vampire movie?
I never even heard of it before.
Oh,
You must
yeah,
change the name,
so.
didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
You gave it a Farrahism, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. Every once in a while we mention these shows, and I always forget the first one that seemed to start at that movie. Charmed. It inspired Charmed. Practical Magic was a movie with Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. But it made it look like it was just kind of, I don't know, kind of like it's still adventurous. So did the Harry Potter thing. And, you might say that, well, that's okay, Star Wars, fantasy, Lord of the Rings, all that kind of stuff. But when they use the real witchcraft in there, and they kind of it makes it more mainstream. You get desensitized to it. Like the more you see pedophilia in some movies, there was a movie with Nicole Kidman, I think, in one of them, where the guy supposedly came back as a dead person, came back as reincarnated as this little boy, and he's like 9 years old, and there was a pedophile scene in there. So if they get you desensitized to all these things, eventually they can think anything of it, and suddenly everything moves down on the scale. Like now Satanism isn't so bad anymore.
Exactly.
Instead of being the religion of Ted Bundy and Charles Manson and Aleister Crowley, the most evil man in the world. Can you believe it? Now everybody wants to read his books and apply it to their life. The most evil man in the world. That was his nickname. That's when the media actually knew what they're talking about.
Deb, Dawn is saying hello to you in case you're not in the YouTube chat.
Oh, I just put it up. Good evening, everyone.
Okay, well, everybody's saying hello to you.
Hello to you.
Hello to you.
I got to scroll down on my lower thing and just
and see where everybody's at. Oh, and Jennifer Evans. Oh my gosh. The lady love. Mr. Peanut.
I think we're missing another rose, too.
Listen, everybody, if you're listening, make sure you check on the little bell in the corner so that you get notifications when we're going to go live. And like the video if you can. Please give it a little thumbs up. Unfortunately, this isn't Facebook, so I can't see your little smiling faces.
Oh, you said the F word.
But that's right, I said the F word. I apologize.
It's subscribe.
Just hit the little like button, the little thumb thing that says yes, I'd like.
And you always can find what's next on the deck, because we're not scheduling 2 live shows a week. You'll always see in there, if you go to the Real Deals /live, the page that you should be on right now, that the one will be on deck scheduled at some point before the Friday. I probably need to do it right away after the show, or tomorrow, or Saturday. That'll be the one that you go to watch the live movie, no matter what. Live stream. A movie, if we ever put a movie up, huh? Gotta think big, right?
Kids, we've doinked around enough and diddle-brained ourselves. Let's go over. Next page, dear. We don't need to talk about Namaste, unless you have anything else to talk about New Age religious programming.
No, I think it's self-explanatory. No reason to beat anybody's head over.
Let's go to the next page.
Oh, hold on. Let's see here. Okay, here we go.
More fun and games. Now, when we look at some of the invitations that happen in our culture right now that are popular, silly stuff we did as kids, have just evolved into stuff that is really directly invitational, with the constant focus on the beauty of vampires. So whereas 100 years ago they were ugly and disgusting and nasty and smelly, now they shoot sparkles out of their nether regions, and their little hair glows. Well, they do. Look at their fingers and everything else, and their little brains. They just sparkle. And nothing's scary anymore. So we have we have had to come up with a bunch of new games for kids that are bored. Now, when we were doing social media, and I'm sure, Deb, you remember this, we used to fold our paper in little footballs and like flick them across the room.
Yes, we're that bored.
Now kids are like taking their little number 2 pencils and they're putting them down and they're drawing this little grid and playing the Charlie Charlie game. That is directly invitational to spirits. So if your child ever says anything about, yeah, I tried Charlie Charlie, Mom, not a good thing.
Yeah, that kind of came in.
Not a good thing.
Is that still popular out there? I mean, just because the news media is not talking about, how would you know? You find kids. How do you find them practicing another form of divination? You know what it is? It's sensitivity. Thomas Edison, like some of these people, like Houdini and others, became kind of obsessed with the occult. And Sir, who was the guy who wrote, was it Tarzan and The Journey to the Center of the Earth or whatever?
I'm not sure.
They become kind of messed up in the occult, especially, in the early 1900s to, I don't know, closer to the 30s, the 40s or something like that.
Yeah.
That Thomas Edison was working on like a typewriter that would be so sensitive that you can get a spirit to basically trigger the keys. Now we got computer programs, and it kind of goes straight across there, doesn't it? Because anything that's a sensitivity device, a pendulum, that only takes just a little bit, unfortunately, including a breath. The pendulum, the scrying, whatever, that's a little different. But remember they used to use an upside-down wine glass in the old 1920s, 30s with a little bit of lipstick or wax from a candle on there, and they would move it around like that. That was the plan shit when they made the Ouija board mainstream. But I just want to make that point about the sensitivity. Just about anything that can have sensitivity that can point to yes or no can be used, such as they're doing electronic stuff now.
Totally. And when you go down on our list here, as we talk about other invitational games, playing with pendulums and things that swing has been popular for eons. Now, just about anything can be used as a pendulum. They just attach it to a string and just play with it and talk to spirits that they just invite in. As far as trance channeling goes, it's pretty basically self-explanatory when people can very easily put themselves into a trance and ask things to come inside. You're well aware of that, aren't you, dear Deb?
Oh, yes, definitely.
How were you introduced to trance channeling?
Pardon me?
How were you introduced to trance channeling?
Through kids at high school.
See?
And that's just it. I mean, whether it's high school or whether it's college, and kids are talking about it. They're talking about it as a way to relax. They're talking about it as a way to gain power. They're talking about a way to gain knowledge. There's a variety of different ways. And that, goes for the ones that we're talking below, too. Scrying, stones, mirrors, and water. As we all are very, very familiar with, I believe, Nostradamus used to sprinkle boiled nutmeg and a few other spices into this huge vat of water and would heat it to a certain temperature. And then as it cooled down, he would just gaze and let himself go into a trance, breathing in the inhalation of the other herbs that I'm not mentioning here because I don't want you to try it. So that's the problem with telling people, oh yeah, this and this and this, and they're like, oh, I wonder if it really works. No, no. This is not cool.
It's not exactly carnal knowledge, it's a morality of it.
It's unfortunately it's worse than carnal knowledge. It's almost supernatural divination to a certain extent is sharing that.
But the sad part is, Farah, everybody can look things up on the internet.
And not only that, they'll find 5 or 6. It's like if I look up a banana nut bread recipe, I'm going to get 20 recipes. You look up Nostradamus and scrying, oh my gosh, you'll get like 15 different ways he did it. And unless you have any clue about history, you're going to get something different than he did. But,
See, it had all his recipes online.
Exactly. The problem is that you know your intentions. The spirits know your intentions. You don't want to mess with those bad spirits. And our children don't know any different. Our college kids don't know any different. And then, of course, there are beautiful, beautiful stones, such as the volcanic stones and other that are just polished to a mirror-like finish, and they're just absolutely gorgeous, and they're used, of course, as for people to stare into and step into and get into a trance. They also use them for scrying and looking at themselves to get themselves in a trance-like state to invite all these spirits to come play with them. As we know, water's long been used. The whole ghost chasing, ghost hunting, provoking, and calling, I think that comes about, from when we sit around campfires as young kids and go, yeah, I ain't afraid of no ghost. And people make fun of stuff that they don't really think is going to hurt them. That's the problem. They don't think any of this stuff will hurt them. And when we say provoking and calling, we don't mean, come out from behind the grave marker wherever you are. We basically mean summoning up things. Pretty dangerous.
Yeah, on all of these we can go on and give you case studies and so forth. Scrying, they also call it, what is it, speculum, mirror, and those stones, that's something I'm not familiar with, but water is reflectant too, and so is tea leaves, and they stare into the tea leaves. Now, it's also done, of course, with TVs, the white noise thing, like the movie with Michael Douglas, and there was a sequel. I don't think I ever saw that sequel, did I? Oh, is that the one with those three creepy blind guys in a picture frame?
I think so. Oh my gosh, Steve Foster just Googled Nostradamus and got like 7 million hits in 38 seconds on his recipes.
That's a unique name. So
well, the thing of it is Nostradamus was also, he was very good at medicine. He was an herbalist. He practiced all sorts of healing herbs with people in a medical profession. But what he used in scrying was a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah, and part of it's because you remember when you take certain drugs, and that's what some rituals do, some cults, religions, whatever, and they do it to open your mind up, to put you in a semi-dream state so that you're more susceptible with your eyes and your senses and everything. And they call it hallucinogenics when you take certain drugs like LSD, which is kind of a more uncontrollable version of another one that witches actually take before they do their conjuring rituals, so you can see the progress of the demon coming and interact with it afterwards.
What we've got here, and Deb, I know you're familiar with that, is when we're talking about the next couple things, the wind talking, past life regressions, ghost captures on phone apps, we're talking about specifically messing with the dead or the spirits. That's all there is to it. Because when you do wind talking, when you're looking for an echo, you're looking for something to answer you back, you're playing with those EVP apps, you're hello, you're calling up Mr. Boogeyman. And in past life regression sessions, what the heck do you think you're doing? Especially if you're Christian. You're calling up what spirits to put stuff in your imagination.
Yeah, and it's
and kids think it's so cool. Oh yes, I was like the queen of denial when I was like 4 or 5 lives ago. And they never were any boring lives too. Like, oh yeah, you were a stable keep, and all you did was shovel horse pucky all day.
Remember down in Red Dwarf when Rimmer was told that he was in a past life he was Alexander the Great's eunuch. Remember that? That was funny so because of all the cases that we know where people always come up with all these, like you said, kings and queens and all this stuff. Why not? Why wouldn't you be Alexander the Great's eunuch if it was true? But that's more things. You might have a generational line from them, and all those spirits are basically following you around because they didn't go to heaven, so to speak, and then they become part of your minion tribe that's haunting you generationally, and that can happen. You can draw them in by allowing yourself to go under hypnosis, and the nearest one, that's assuming that they're telling the truth anyway. I mean, the spirit speaking through you is not you from the past.
Yes. It's
the spirit telling its past, and that's what it used to be. Now, did we hear that I was Pope so-and-so, in a past life? How funny you don't hear that? You hear they're Joan of Arc probably, because they always, when a spirit comes upon you, they're going to try to get your narcissistic side all fired up, because they love pride.
What was that, Deb?
Oh, no, Arnie just said something to me.
That's okay. If Arnie has an opinion, we love listening to it.
He was just saying how some people are just so naive about the whole situation.
I know.
He's right. They
and
really,
that's teenagers
really
we're
and
supposed to tell them.
that's why we're talking about college kids. You know, they trust that the friends that they're bunking with, that they're Christian, they're okay, and what they're doing is not going to hurt them. And they step into it with both feet. It's just like, oh, yeah, sure, drop that in my drink. I'll drink it and see what it is.
Right.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, so the desire to have it and establish a relationship, some of them do, communication or anything as such, is just as, it's not like doing it, but it's the start of it. That's what happens in succubus and incubus cases first, the fantasizing, fueled by romance novels or porn. Next thing you know, it's in a dream. Next thing you know, you're waking up and your ankles are being touched by unseen hands, the covers are being pulled down. It's not always the same exact way, but you see the progressive stages grow. So what's next there, Farah?
Well, you know, we were talking about the invitation to render one's mind, shall we say, open, is used in a lot of invitational events, especially in young children, such as, you know, you can look at predators and how they ply children with alcohol. You can look at, yeah, exactly. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about young kids in college. And, you know, what do? They have a few drinks and they try this stuff. When we're talking about using EVP apps and we're talking about ayahuasca, ruins, tea leaves, LSD, these things, they leave your spirit open and your mind open. So the ayahuasca has been really more of a wealthy kid craze because it's very, very difficult. I do believe there are certain standards for the FDA. You cannot import the plant that ayahuasca is made from. I think it's made from a couple different plants. But the college kids go down there for a life-changing experience, and they end up taking this LSD type drug. It's not I don't think it's as strong as lysergic acid, but it operates on different receptors. So whereas LSD may cause you to have flashbacks, ayahuasca does something different to your brain that almost shuts it down into slow motion at times. I'm not sure quite how to explain it, but it basically can drive you crazy. And that's just doing it once. It's very potent. It lasts between 10 and 12 hours, can last up to 24, 30 hours in a person, and it is so incredibly dangerous. So just instead of having a couple shots of alcohol to play with your EVPs on your little phone, your kids may go, hey, Mom, you know, I want to go climb, you know, in Machu Picchu, I want to go climb down in Mexico. And they get invited because all the kids, you know, they get bussed en masse to these wonderful little campsites where, you know, it's this mind-opening experience. It's a religious, it's a local thing that everybody does. And that brings me to another thing, is what we didn't mention on there is mild forms of voodoo. And why do I bring it up? Because we just witnessed this, Deb, and I'm not sure if we talked to you about this last week or a couple weeks ago. I think it might have been last week, where we had an incident of someone contacting us and asking us why didn't they get a deliverance from somebody they had paid $1,000 to, because, you know, they had gone through a bunch of prayers, walked around the house, put a bunch of salt in it. And I think what we talked to you about, Deb, was this person was put in a tub full of water and was given a bouncy ball and said that we want you to visualize your demon going into the ball and you throw it out. And once you do, the demons will be gone. It's a form of voodoo. And I saw it on TV this weekend, Deb, because I was doing some research for something else that I'm working on. And I couldn't remember where I'd heard that. And it's actually Yorimbe voodoo. And basically, there's no difference when you are asking somebody to come and deliver you and they're practicing a form of voodoo. If your college-age children or your high school students think that they can visualize an entity going into anything, this coffee cup, it's divination. You're playing with spirits.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's a desire. It's thoughts directing. When you know, I don't call them magicians. We'll just say Satanists. When they get really proficient, they don't need words. They don't need a wand. They direct it with thought. And that's the key, that there is something to our thoughts. Now, how would you get this sleep paralysis to end by thinking Jesus' name?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's all through thought.
Same thing.
That's pretty
how
scary.
the other side works. That's how the spirit world works.
And not a lot of
that's
people
our spirit.
understand that, Deb.
Yeah.
They just, I don't know what they don't get.
Yeah, that dimension, it's like, that's when our thoughts, which are a spiritual thing, they're not a mental thing, to some level, even though you have both of them working together, always working together.
And the Norse gods, they're not much different than the Greek gods, or shall we say the Roman gods.
Mm-hmm.
They are specific gods of wind, air, land, ocean. Underneath the ocean, the Norse gods are very powerful and fearsome. When the runes were developed, they believe this is one of the first forms of the actual alphabet, just like the forms and poses of yoga are worshipful poses to specific deities and gods, most of them Shiva, since she's, the most powerful one. The runes are no different, and people don't really understand. If you don't understand a culture, where something comes from, which most kids don't, they're just like, come on, let's play. It's like, what's that expression, Deb, that God protects those that are stupid, ignorant, and drunk, or something like
Not
that?
Not drunk. That's one of the problems with that, yeah. I mean, unless you
has
get
to protect us.
Yeah.
I know.
If your free will takes
Seriously.
you out of that
And-
zone by drinking or, getting on hallucinogens, something that takes you out of the right reason. then
Yes,
you're- then
precisely.
you're
You
in
can't
danger.
logically think.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the innocence of this supposed thing even goes that people keep making this case that about the Jews, that the church directly came from the Jewish. They keep confusing that with the old Jewish ways, like with the Kabbalah and Solomon's magic, even, as we said before. And that's not the Jewish way. That's not the, God of Abraham Jewish way. Just like the sage. There's no usage of sage at all in the Christian, Judeo history. But when you go into Crowley and you go into Solomon's magic and all that stuff, that's when they use it. It's frankincense and myrrh. That's why the Magi gave it to the Holy Family. It was very rare
Arnie
at the
just mentioned
time.
something again to me, and he's got a point there.
Mm-hmm.
He said a lot of times because people don't believe it, they want to actually see if it works, so they'll challenge it.
It's so true.
Yeah.
That's the word,
Sadly
challenge,
true.
right there.
Yeah, curious teenagers, right? And they got to try
Exactly.
things for themselves in your house, and that's just over the top. They a lot of these things they have to do at their friend's house, not your house, not your site. Get the thing out of your house sometimes, but you got to watch the friends, their parents, and that's when most of this stuff happens. That when they go to college, they get introduced to these things for the first time. We're talking about the drugs and all that. In addition to that, which all goes hand in hand, right?
Completely, and that's, the whole thing with this tea leaves, that goes basically into divination. LSD, peyote. The problem with, LSD and peyote and those drugs that children encounter in schools and in campuses today is usually it is blessed in a ritual. It is usually, shall we say, intentionally sold to get kids hooked. It's intentionally sold to continue their curiosity into the dark arts, black magic. We don't have children growing up, shall we say, and I hate that word, I apologize for using it, people, in yurts.
Okay.
I can't stand that word. I hear people saying that word, and I just want to just take a pan and smack them over the head. Stop saying the word,
At least you're not sucking in breath like these.
That's true. Yeah.
And then I go. Okay, try to be
The
a little
difference
quiet.
that I am differentiating here is when you have someone that is using peyote or using mushrooms in a religious ceremony that it has the intention of their tribe, such as if you're there I go again. If you're in China, if you're in a yurt and you're born in that culture, if you are Native American and you are using cactus as part of your religious ceremony, that's part of your culture. Our children are not part of that culture. They're going to be exposed to drugs that have been specifically cursed. And when I say blessed, they've been blessed with a curse.
Yeah, that's what you always mean. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't mean that they've been blessed in a good way. So this is the danger. How do we tell our kids, oh no, just wear a paper bag over your head Stick socks in your ears. Don't listen, don't talk, and don't play with people you don't like. Onward and upward. We finally made the next page.
All right.
Pseudoscience. I love this one, Deb, because the sciences claim to explain everything. They change with the wind. You might have one person explaining, like we were talking about Nostradamus. One person may talk about phrenology as if it's an actual science because they've studied the skulls of monkeys to humans today. Then another might say that you only study like one culture at a time. You might study South American culture. You might study North American culture. Phrenology is not a science. Just because it has an ology behind it, it is not a science. As you can see...
Add ology on the end of any word. Doesn't make it right.
That's a little trick there. How about palmistryology? Palmology.
Palmology.
The ability to be able to use palmolive for your dishwasher.
Or what about a garbologist? Someone who collects garbage? Garbology?
And studies it after.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
Looking for cool things. Well, that's the problem with demonology too, is that it's been so overused that it's lost all of its credibility. And going back to late 1990s and early 2000s,
yes,
all the ones that I knew back then. There's only about 5 of us, and John Zappas didn't call himself that to respect Ed Warren, who just had a stroke. And I think there was this Lou Gentili and the brothers from the original Ghost Hunter series. There's just a few of us, and I didn't hear it at first. I asked politely, you think that would be in bad taste to use that? Because Ed Warren was the only one who really used that title. In the church, there wasn't no official demonologist per se. They still use terms like parapsychology spiritual warfare. But yeah, one of the things is, and I'm not going to try to cheat the list and go all the way down to the bottom or anything, but if you skip down to UFOlogy and go back to the rest, UFOlogy is when you actually find in our work that someone who doesn't believe in demons will apply aliens to everything, like that puffy-haired guy. I'm not saying it's aliens, it's aliens.
But it's aliens. A garbologist. Yeah, it's a hoarder, all right.
He's like a garbologist.
Yes, a total hoarder.
But that's what you'll notice too, and that's science explained, something natural. Like, how about interdimensional beings? I remember listening to the Alar Bell show, and it would be like, and what are shadow people? Are they interdimensional beings? Are they from another time and space, from outer space? Okay, well, they're demons. I've seen them, dealt with them all the time. Why do they run in the name of Jesus? They don't like him?
I know.
Did they get forced to go to alien churches when they were a kid that had Jesus on the cross at their altars? So, test the spirit, people. Even in the shape, how about cryptozoology, Bigfoot? If they're crypto species because they're now you see it, now you don't. You never see them again, and then they show up and they disappear in front of your eyes or whatever, and you're the only one experiencing it. That sounds like a what? A demon? Or
we
a ghost?
We don't want people thinking that their children are going to be possessed or they're going to be oppressed because they try any of this stuff. We're saying that there's a possibility they could invite something home to terrorize them further, but they're trying it once, getting your palm read once. That may not be enough invitation for them to be oppressed and have nightmares. Numerology, heck, the ancient Jews, Jesus' people, practiced numerology to determine the placement of the stars, and that's where they looked.
That's why it wasn't the Jews of Abraham. It was the ones that followed the pagan rituals and sacrificing children.
And astrology, Abraham. That's a nice way to give the gods, specific reign over the sky. The crabs, the satyr, and all these strange animals. And alchemy, as we know, is... I don't really see college kids into alchemy so much. College kids are kind of a little bit more... shall we say, they don't believe. High school kids, you might see them trying to change tin into gold, but I haven't seen that lately. ufology, I mean, that's a good one. What about cryptozoology? What do you think about that, Deb? I don't know that that's a science so much, but Bigfoot might have existed. I like to think that, if I saw him, I'd like to hang out with them.
Of some sort that we don't see every day, correct?
I'd say yes.
Like a mutation. It's a mutation type of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's what I would think when you're looking at, something that calls, I see this big hairy beast and he's walking on twos. There are monkeys that walk on twos, but, right?
Absolutely.
I think that monkeys that walk are cute, but I'm not related to them.
Well, if we have any cryptozoology, anything to do with monkeys, we know we have to contact Steve.
That's
Foster.
right.
Steve, you got anything for us?
Oh my gosh, no kidding. We need a word from the wise Steve. I think that there's a potential. I know I saw something in the woods that looked like a big hairy monkey when I was growing up in Puget Sound, but hey, it could have been a wild man. What do I know?
Yeah, because you're seeing it, and no one can verify physical contact. Even if you had a smell, because there's spirits. It's remember UFO aliens and Bigfoot.
Yes.
That they'll have a sulfur smell with it.
I know.
And
right?
so some demonic presence or smell of burning flesh. So unless you can go over there and you can pet his carpet, or you walk up to him and he's still there and he didn't fall through some trap door.
Baby.
No.
No, you don't want me petting no carpet.
Oh, mercy. Let's go to the next page now.
Or we die of old age.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, that was it. All right, this is one of those things I think that demands our attention, because when our young kids get tempted to practice any form of white magic, they think it's perfectly natural. They think it's absolutely harmless, as you're going to tell us here in a minute.
Yeah.
When people ask us, what is witchcraft? Sadly, there is no real strong roots of witchcraft, sadly. I mean, I should say, thank goodness there isn't. Europe has lots of it.
Wait, no real wrong root? You got to watch out when you say certain things. People are going to...
What I'm saying is there's not the same
with
root of witchcraft here that there is in Europe. Europe has thousands of years of it. America is still in the throes of Satanism witchcraft, because Wicca here is perceived as a white magic. They burn white candles and green candles and red candles.
And black.
Whereas the darkest witches more lean towards, well, they will not admit to worshiping Satan. They practice the dark arts.
And the great horn one, which is Satan.
And they cast
that's a funny one.
Very, very, very dark spells. So when we say what is Wicca, what they define themselves, and your children or your college kids will come home and say, well, that's just, that's honoring the North and the South, and that's honoring the water, and yes, she has an altar. That's harmless, Mom and Dad. That's the potential for serious oppression.
Yeah, this brings up another topic, too, that teenagers are very naive to what the difference between good and evil is.
That's what Arnie was saying.
And you've seen it, they'll get with, girls will get with boyfriends that are just totally dark. You remember we talked about earlier the appeal of the vampire series, and the teenagers are falling for it big time, way back then and then even now, of course, because they just come up with new things, new series. The Vampire Diaries, came out years ago, and it was their answer to the Twilight series that we're talking about.
Yes.
But when they try to color it with like, he's just a victim, he's so nice, he's so sweet, he treats me like a queen. Well, then how many women are married or were married to an abusive husband who was so alluring and charming and everything, and boy, he was a wife beater. He was an occultist or something and didn't believe in the leg of God, but at first he acts like, they'll even tell you that they like your kind of music, and then you'll find out they hate it, and they turn it off the radio station and even rip the radio out of the dashboard in one case. I wrote something once about the kind of a metaphor, and that is you cannot judge an individual or anything by its so-called light side. You You have to look at their dark side. That's what you do when you're picking a man out, girls and guys. The same thing when you're picking a girl. You know, you want to get married to or have a friendship with, even, because that dark nature dictates who they are. You know, like we talked about Ted Bundy, good-looking guy, right? He was actually going to be running for governor, and some other aspects of that said he was very charismatic in the way he handled himself. You know, he got all of those girls that have an interest, and I saw the list of the victims, and they're all above average looking gals. And so how did he get there? Because they saw not his dark side, which he easily hid, but they paid attention to only how he made them feel. Made them feel validated. You know, maybe they had self-esteem issues for whatever reason. Teenagers and, you know, college kids aren't that much older. They all have these issues internally, right, Farah?
Yeah.
So they're even worse than adults because they're inexperienced and immature. And when they choose this type of thing to craft, and in this case, it is like that you need money. So you go to this person, and he says, all right, I'll help you with that, you know, but you got to do me a favor sometime, you know, and you say, okay, you take it. It's like making a deal with the devil. He always has that backstory, you know. It's not just for, oh, just kidding, you know, forget about it, you know, that old Italian way to do it. And later on he comes and, you know, you run into him and he says, hey, you remember that, you know, I lent you that money? And, oh, yeah, thank you very much, Mr., you know, Gambabini or whatever. You make up some name, you know, mob boss stereotype. I want you to do me a favor. Could you take this package, you know, go on the other side of the city, and here's a little bit of money for gas and all that stuff. You know, it's a favor I'm just asking you. And then you go over there, and then the FBI is busting when you're there at the door, and you're carrying like 20 pounds of coke. Now, what are you going to pay attention? Are you going to pay attention to the fact that he gave you a loan? You're not even sure what his name was when the cops ask you, and you got caught with something. You know, that's the way these things work. It works that way until you make a deal with any kind of form of evil. You can't look at the bright side of it, you know, like, oh, yes, it makes me still feel wonderful. It's actually bringing me boyfriends when I didn't have any before. I don't know, whatever you think. Oh, it got me a job. That's a big one. They use it all the time. One gal says, I got my book published.
Ken, this also includes jewelry, different types of jewelry.
Good point.
Like Rosalie mentioned when she sees somebody wearing a pentagram, a necklace.
Oh, my
but
gosh,
also, I've seen people have the Ankh ring, the Egyptian Ankh ring.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and here's one that's going to probably PO people when they wear the Italian horn. When I grew up, everybody around me had an Italian horn. I never had one.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Okay? And I was told by Ed Warren and Lorraine, you know, not to have an Italian horn. Don't ever wear one around your neck. Don't wear the Ankh ring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my mother had an Italian horn, but she didn't wear it. She just kept it in a jewelry box. Mm-hmm. I had the Ankh ring, and I showed him, and he goes, no, you need to get rid of that now.
Yeah, that's the one with it's like a T with a, could you close the door and like... And
a round T, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Mm-hmm. And then the other one, I don't remember hearing the Italian horn. I think they called it various names, like it was a unicorn's horn, the leprechaun
Only
staff.
The Italian people would wear it.
Yeah.
That was.
Didn't it look like it could have been an animal horn? You know, like it's like been cut off of a, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the
Italian. Only Italians would wear that because that was.
Mm-hmm.
They said, "Oh, that's the Italian symbol. That means I'm Italian."
Mm-hmm.
No, Ed had other words for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that John Todd we talked about a few weeks ago when we got in a little bit about fake occultists, you know, using that to make money or whatever, spread some wealth for their church. He said that some of the things he said was right about Satanism. He would mention that about the Ankh and said that's a fertility, one representing fertility, and that the horn was supposed to be good for your finances. Of course, do you want demons to handle your finances? You know, because they're not going to let you play both sides either. If you're wearing a crucifix, also instead it'll go on the opposite direction. You know, when you talk about jealousy. But I guess the big thing is that know your enemy. I said also, and it's in the first book too, is that if you have a child, let me give you an example. This one person had some spell go horribly wrong, got haunted. Well, she goes back to her, I don't know what you call them, madam or whatever they call these coven leaders, and she says you didn't do the spell right. And I saw a similar episode story on haunting, and the person made the salt circle, and then it had a gap in it, and they blamed it on that. You didn't make your salt circle right. See, it's like you're calling these spirits that will punish you. Can you imagine if you said the Our Father and you messed up on it, and then an angel comes slaps you around with a glove for a half hour, or you're haunted, and then you got to say, then you go back to your guru and says, I don't really know what to do, because there is no deliverance ministry in witchcraft. They're the ones who cause it. All you can do is appease them, like paying the school bully lunch money. But Ken,
I have to bring this up.
Yeah.
I'm reading from the chat room. Rosalie, you're right. That's what I grew up knowing. The horn, the gold horn that you wear around your neck, is supposed to protect you from the evil eye. But according to Ed, we're not supposed to, if you're a Christian, you're not supposed to wear those type of things because of the fact that you only go with the crucifix.
Well, yeah, and like Jennifer Evans says, yeah, we're very Italian. We're not supposed to wear a lucky charm. It's a superstitious charm in a lot of ways.
The superstitious charm. Thank you, Farah.
I thought you were supposed to wear the evil eye to counter the evil eye. Remember that?
Well, it's no different than nailing a horseshoe over your doorway, so that it's kind of like the same thing.
Yeah.
But people say, if you have a horseshoe over your door, of any door, whether it's a barn door or a house door, you have to have the horseshoe going up.
Yeah, so the luck doesn't run out.
You have it hanging down, your luck will run out, so you have it going up.
Yeah, it's superstition. Anything that can turn in, if it doesn't have a pagan origin or whatever, and somebody just did it because they just thought, oh, what the heck, I'll make this new superstition. I don't know. It's amazing some of the things that we found out through life, just living, that used to be some pagan superstition, and I just thought it was part of culture, some kind of nonsense. Like if I find out the hockey playoff beards, when they grow their beards, at playoffs times, because they think it jinxes the teams when you shave it off, and then that's the day you lose. I don't remember what the origin was in that in hockey, but I wouldn't be surprised if I find out there's some pagan origins, like, before wartime, when the tribes got together, they let their beards grow out, until the war was over and they had won. I mean, we might find something like that out. A lot of these things have these origins, don't they?
I think so.
Yeah.
So going down the list, so we can at least get this page done today. Mm-hmm. When we're looking at white witchcraft and Wicca, there is no such thing as white witchcraft. All witchcraft is dangerous.
Witchcraft.
Yes, it's
doesn't matter what you use it for.
And the Bible says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch," meaning that any sort of witch should be put away from you. In other words, you should not be hanging around people that practice witchcraft. Mm-hmm. You ought not to allow them into your homes. You ought not to let your children hang out with them. Especially if you find out that there's any sort of necromancy, scrying, or any of the other invitational things, such as playing with Ouija boards, playing with the pendulums, any of that sort of stuff. Now, for whatever reason, Ken put the lessons of Solomon in here due to the fact that Solomon was enticed. He made the mistake of marrying one too many wives. He was a lover. He wasn't a fighter. And just like his father David,
his weakness.
Yes, his weakness was his love of his wives. And instead of being true to his faith and his religion, he allowed his wives to build temples to false gods. And pretty soon he was walking to those temples with those women, and one thing led to another. He was going to the temple, then they had him participating, and he cursed. He was cursed.
Kingdom. Yeah.
Everything in his line was cursed. So that was why I think Ken put the lessons of Solomon there. And these dorm parties that kids have, this is almost cult-like behavior. I think Deb, you and I were talking about this, I don't know, maybe a month ago, about some of the cult-like groups that people join in college, such as, what was the Skulls? The Bushes joined the Skulls, right? Mm-hmm. Besides, the Freemasons, the Skulls. There's a few others. I can't think of them off the top of my head right now.
Rosicrucians?
Yes, there's initiation ceremonies, there's fraternity pledges, and it's all worshiping something other than God. It's not good, you guys. It's just not. So if your child, your young person calls and says, hey, you know, I got to have this outfit and this outfit because I'm going to be initiated. Initiated into what? Do you want me to spank you?
Yeah, and they are
I
cultish
was
in a lot
never
of
a
ways.
follower of
Yes.
anything.
Yes.
Have you ever seen like the
exactly.
fraternities that we talked about this before? I think recently. It's hard to tell. Sometimes we mention on the phone. You know the way the fraternities do their little thing, and they dress
Yes.
like in robes and stuff, and they use candles and the sororities, and then the fraternities they do something that seems more like the Freemasons, where they have you strip down your underwear, and they bind your hands and other weird stuff, and it's like I wouldn't doubt if the people who came up with those were actually from those other occult groups, cultish type rituals and all that.
Now, going through
okay.
the rest of them here,
Okay.
the smaller cults, for some reason or other, we added Highland games, and we're not talking about some of the fun stuff that goes on at the Irish, English, the Celtic Highland games. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a different kind of club. The sex clubs, the sex swapping clubs, the reenactment groups that we're not talking about the Renaissance fairs. We're talking about some of the very strange ones where they reenact. This goes beyond cosplay to where there is S&M, there's bondage, there's domination.
Like Burning Man?
It's worse. It's an exposure to porn on a level that excites young people because it's different and it's quiet and it's secret and it gets them into a club. It's very dangerous. All of these, the bottom line, are power-based groups. Power to control one another, power to feel in control, and it attracts people, as in inner cities, we have kids that join gangs because they need to feel powerful. They need to feel like they're in control. They need to belong. And that need to belong has brought this society to where it is right now. So that is...
Yeah, like the gang initiations we talked about.
Yes.
And you know what? The
it's
sex
just
clubs is
sad.
probably more attractive to a young man because the girls, they might be selective and then be willing to give it to their first love. But the boys just want to experience it because of the porn out there. It makes you just want to dive in. Like if you got exposed to alcohol in your life and suddenly you have access to it, you're going to go on a drinking binge the first time. But they kind of got that in.
Yes.
That sex clubs is just another... I don't know, a soft word for what's really going on, and I don't know where the limit is.
It just doesn't stop because college is just, it's such a time of youthful experimentation and exploration that kids aren't prepared. They're just not prepared. So
yeah, it's going to be there too, just like slumber parties and any kind of, and then colleges, like you said, because it's harder to get something organized with your parents' house when it can happen at a frat party or a sorority party now. So there isn't any safe zone for anybody. Christian colleges, they probably sneak some of that stuff in. We heard some stuff lately that came up on the political scene. And I think the accuser was even going to, places where gang rapes occurred over and over again. Now, why would the girls go there? Again and again and again.
I agree.
This is just over the top. But that's a lure for some people. It's the candy. You remember, do people really want to go? Oh, there's going to be liquor there. It's not like they can't get liquor this anywhere. Sometimes you can pay a guy like American Graffiti just make sure he's not going to rob the place first.
And colleges have always been this way. It's not something new. It's always been this way.
No, and colleges have changed, from a couple hundred years ago to a few hundred years. Colleges were places of learning. Colleges were places where you scraped up money so that you could learn exactly what you needed to know about medicine, about education. And the people you hung around with, like the Skull and Bones or the Masons, determine how far you got in life as far as your career. Now they've become almost a dumbed-down version of high school, to where everybody pays because everybody gets a star certificate, everybody's passed, and everybody expects to make money that isn't there because there is no excellence. That's the problem with people's colleges today. You think you're sending your kids, oh, yes, my kid's got to have a college education. A college education is nothing anymore.
You know, kids are out on their own for the first time. Oh, we don't have our parents over our shoulders. We can do what we want.
That's right.
We are
Precisely.
own boss.
It's the first place they're going to experience the drug usage of any kind. You know, it's funny because when we were younger, smoking was the bad thing, and then it was pot. Now pot's no big deal because kind of part before it legalized, it was even like, pot, but it's the hard stuff now, and now it's it's getting to the point where pedophilia is just going to be accepted now universally somehow. They still got the websites online. They want to take Alex Jones' website down, political commentary. He's got his opinions, and you're going to leave Mambla up and some of these sites that why isn't PayPal denying donations to them? It's like everything is just so whacked out. But yeah, you're right, because remember Mr. Howell from Gilligan's Island in the old days? It's like, he considered Yale the lower class, a college, and all the rich guys and the highbrow went to Harvard. And Harvard is so over the top, anti-God and anti-conservative, anti-American, pro-communism, everything. It's like, what happened? It's like Mr. Howell, the icon for the Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street. Remember he used to call himself that in the show, The Wolf of Wall Street Strikes Again. Ha! Jim Backus in there. What a character, Mr. Magoo.
And that's the problem with this whole mainstream. People were saying that the icons that people see every day, the pentagram, the pentacle, the upside down moon.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, we're not going to have time for that today, so we might as well stay on witchcraft and white magic.
Okay.
What we are seeing is a proliferation of common symbols that were not common, made to be completely acceptable. It's nothing to throw the horns at a concert. What the heck does that mean? Well, it's a cool symbol.
Yeah. That's you can almost do this is why a big fat book like War and Peace, so that as a parent you can recognize all the signs, symptoms, words, terminology, all that stuff that's in music and everything you're exposed to that's leading down this dark path. It's like we had some subtle things that came up in our music. You know how rock and roll just says "rock me tonight," and you just think, oh yeah, they're gonna get out the guitar, go da 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 da, and you're gonna be like, oh, that's great, I love it when he plays the guitar. And it's in rock and roll, is basically, all the songs are supposed to be about, sex and parties and all that stuff. But I never really caught on when I was a kid, even that "Rock Me Tonight." I didn't think about it, like, oh yeah, rock me tonight. Oh yeah, I can't wait to have intercourse. You know what I mean? That now it's like I remember when I guess it was in the 90s or something when they had songs that blatantly came out and said, and then country music was the first one. That cowgirl came alive in those tight-fitting jeans. I mean, they were direct to the point. And then some of the pop songs came out, and they said, "Let's talk about sex, baby." Let's, like that. And I was like, "What the heck? Is this a song?" It's like, what is this? And that was like this early stuff. Now it's Satanism. It used to have innuendos and hard rock and thrasher music and stuff. Now it's like open about Satanism. They flash the signs and they put it into their decorations of their stage scenes. So where are the youth going to be able to grow up and not be influenced by media, TV shows, friends, schools, colleges, and what to do? We still have a couple more parts and many pages. I don't know how many pages we got exactly.
Way too many to talk about. We're going to leave you here, folks, talking about the witchcraft and white magic and Wicca. If you have any questions about any of the invitational things that we've gone over, we are going to go next week from some of the most common invitations to our youth today. Did I skip over any, Deb? Was there anything that came up? Because I know you've got young adults that are
oh yeah, take a
age.
question from chat room that we didn't.
Oh well, my young adults are 29 and 26, so they passed.
They're
all
college age.
Yeah, they passed that stage.
My little another one of these metaphor things is that on witchcraft is that, let's say, okay, you're just a typical house, typical neighborhood. You have these little kids that come over to your house and they play with your kids. They're about the same age. And then you decide to dabble in witchcraft. Say it is a pit bull. You bring a pit bull in the house. That's your white witchcraft. And it does all these things that you didn't think a dog would do. Not only delivers you the paper, it brings you the slippers. It runs the squirrels out of your, and eats them and keeps them out of your. Wouldn't that be great to have that? Stupid squirrels invading our bird feeders and stuff all the time. And it does all these great things. Your kids seem to be okay with it, and that's fine, But one day the dog gets out the back door, and the kids are playing with one of the friends, and the dog goes for the jugular of the next door neighbor because he doesn't know him, as people could say. And that kid dies. Now, you say, are you going to just pay attention to the fact, oh, he's such a sweet dog, oh, yeah, no. You don't look at that. You look at the dark deeds of the person. You don't go to the devil for something. And it's not white just because you said, I want to get my friend cured or I want to help her have a baby. Chances are it'll be born deformed or it'll be born oppressed if you're going to use a spell. You can't do that. There is no light and dark of one thing. There is no dual nature. It's the dark nature dictates who it is. You don't want to go pure white, go to God for it. Attain it the hard way. Attain it to your merits. Try to be a little white more yourself and, a brighter light to be around and not be a pessimist or just so you can get yourself into a place where you can go to your Father and you can say, hey, I need some money. Can you lend it to me? And then the Father in heaven says, you never come around. This is the metaphor again here. You never mowed a lawn. I asked you to help me whenever I was out of work and, so you could, help and get groceries for me and stuff when I had a back injury and blah, blah, blah. And you go on the list. And he says, well, you start to walk away, and he says, but if you really try, I'll give it to you. You don't stay around for the second part. You hear the other one, I'll just go to the devil. So you go to this guy downtown. He's known to sell drugs. He lends you money. It turns out he's like a loan shark. Don't go to the loan shark. Don't think it's cool to hang out with, criminals any more than hang out with white witches. And no matter where they're at in life, they're on the wrong highway to hell. Literally, you're not going to go down there and party with your friends. We don't know exactly what happens down there, and I'm sure it's something closer to getting poked in the butt with pitchforks or something that's unpleasant like that, because there's not going to be any kind of real love.
Spit on the pitchfork. Lubricant. Spit. You want the spit.
Yeah. I had some kind of funny kind of theory that I think it's going to be more like Bill and Ted portrayed in that second one, that you create your own hell. If you're, this guy who just all you can think about is this womanizing and sex, you're going to go down here and you're going to find the ugliest things that are going to like constantly chase you around. It'll be more like Escape from New York was for criminals. The movie with Snake Plissken, Kurt Russell.
We have a really important question, so you don't have to talk about Kurt Russell. Listen up, Deb. Okay, this is way too important to talk about. Okay, guys.
Okay.
Tess wants to know: is there a big correlation between the full moon and black magic, and if so, what types of groups are involved?
Besides who?
That's a good one. The correlation between the full moon and black magic. Go ahead, Deb.
Say, sister.
Go ahead, sweetie.
Do you know the answer?
I would say all of them.
It's like, which ones aren't?
That's the highest peak for them, is to have the full moon. Everything changes. The full moon changes the tide. It changes everybody's behavior. Whether you're in the medical field, whether you're in the police force field,
yep.
It changes everything, the full moon. That's the highest peak.
Yeah, the lunatics even know when they're down in some basement and they don't even know what time of the day it is. They know when they act up during the full moon. Possessions and all this stuff. Well, I don't know. I don't keep a periodical for that thing. But what's thing that you would add on to that? That's not something that I would add.
Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to tell
something
you.
Significant
Where should I start?
about it, definitely.
Okay, I have worked in enough clubs and bars. Do you know what goes on full moons? People's angers flare up. People get PO'd. Mm-hmm. People change into things that you've never seen during full moons, and that's normal people, okay? What about the people involved in black magic, witchcraft, Satanism?
Mm-hmm.
There is something that goes on with this beautiful thing called the moon that rotates around the earth. The moon has the ability to pull the water to the other part of the earth, and we have low tide and high tide. Well, the ancients always believed that when the moon was waxing or waning, it gave it more power to their intentions to the demons. It would draw more demons.
Like Arnie just said, that is the occult high. That's how they get high.
Well, exactly. And I bet Arnie sometime could tell us in certain situations how people just go nuts under a full moon for no reason.
But even on construction work sites.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. People looking for Friday the 13th.
Prisons. Do you realize how hard it is for all those correctional officers to keep everybody under control?
Yeah, it has a
I can't even
power.
imagine. That's the last job I would want on a full moon. I'd be like, I'm sick tonight.
Yeah, where's Eric tonight anyway? Eric Moran.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
I guess there's a lot of answers for that one, but the answer is yes and all.
That he loves you guys. See, you understand, you know.
Of course, yeah. Well, tell him we love him too. The full moon, in the aspect of how many different groups are involved in utilizing the magic of the full moon. Farmers utilize the full moon when they plant. Do you know that if I cut your hair on a full moon, your hair will grow in faster, thicker, and stronger?
Isn't that strange?
Isn't that strange? That's just okay.
That's true.
We live in a physical world.
That's true, Farah.
It is.
Absolutely.
We live in a physical world. So, and I'm not a witch. Okay, I swear I'm not.
That's facts.
Most of the stuff we got to know.
Grow.
We have to watch for this. And we went to the Archdiocese, and they laid out what we may want to use for applications, since we're going to be funded, back when we did. They outlined one of the things with their booklets. In other words, they shared their material with us of references, and one of them, of course, was all the witches' holidays and the full moon cycles and the relevance of it. That it means something, and you should expect something, and you should correlate that to the activity of potential possessed individuals or hauntings which may peak at those days. So by default, we know that. And then we ask, why is that? And then, Farah's a researcher, a really good one, and all that stuff. And I'm just like, I got some ideas I can use as case study. But between the both of us, we, like with the sage thing, you research, you can find it. Don't go to Wikipedia, is our...
So definitely do not go into the emergency room at a full moon. Do not wander around the world. Okay, like if you're wandering around, you live by woods, okay, don't wander around in the woods and go into clearings during a full moon. Don't enter empty caves during a full moon, okay, because bears have a tendency to, for whatever reason, to kind of wake up in the middle of winter during full moons because their stomach growls or something. Don't be bugging bears in caves, okay, kids? Don't go into bars on a full moon because people are feeling really frisky. Trying to stay away from arguments during a full moon because people seem to be they're energized. All right, and these are not the witches that run around.
It's not positive energy either.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, and we've run over again, you guys.
Well,
Deb, we're running over again. Oh my gosh. Carolyn says I have thin, short hair. Get it cut on a full moon.
I know there's some things that are metaphysical. In other words, it's something that interacts with the physical world. And it's the tide and all that. That's not demonic. I'm just saying for some reason there's a correlation with the demonic. The demonic prefers it. The ones that worship them, indirectly or directly. It's a negative thing in the usual case when you're dealing with psychic phenomenon, spiritual warfare, or any of those things. We're warned about it, and from the exorcist office, in initial training in Rome or whatever it may have been. They'll tell you about it because they tell you to expect something. Everybody's looking for Friday the 13th. Well, the only thing you can expect the guy with the mask on Halloween too. Guys, thank you very much. You know what? What should we do next week? Should we start on our haunted?
We're continuing this now. Is it the beginning of October?
Yeah.
Ooh,
I know.
You know what, kids?
You want to postpone it?
Because we really want to talk about some haunted houses and some haunted movies, we're going to do 3. We actually have, I think, 5 Fridays in October. The first one, we're going to go into the early causes because I think you as parents, as moms and dads, as brothers and sisters, we need to go on the first page of, all these causes. Then we're going to continue it in October, November. And then we'll jump back into it. So we'll do the last page next week, and then we'll go into our whole Halloween mood. But never forget, okay, Sancti Michael Arcangele, defendinos in Prelio, our angels are with us. The battle's been won, kiddies. We just have to just hang in there and then do the best we can every day. God bless you all. Thank you, Deb, for joining us. Thank you all. Make sure you give us a like, a big thumbs up. Click the ding bell so you get
Subscribe.
our notifications. Thank you, Michael, Steve, Jennifer, Rosalie, Margaret, Steve, Dawn, and Carolyn, and everybody else. Carolyn, Jennifer.
Remember, we are called the Real Deals because we tell
Peanut.
it like it is, and even if it's at the expense of people.
And we like it like we tell it.
We're not as
most
popular
days.
that way, I tell you what.
We don't know everything, so ask us questions so we can research it, please. Right, Deb?
Absolutely.
Hugs to Arnie.
God bless everybody.
He loves you guys.
Love you guys.
Friday.
Love you too. Can't wait to see you soon.
See you, Shy.
God bless everyone. Be good and say your prayers to your guardian angel.
The Real Deals TV show, copyright 2018, a Swords of St. Michael production. Any unauthorized duplication or rebroadcast or retransmission of this broadcast without the express written permission of the Swords of the Saint Network or that of Kenneth and Farah Deels is strictly prohibited.